Welcome back to an episode of Let's Build Twitter. We are in episode 71, and in this episode we start some spring cleaning of our front-end application, particularly focused on the generic modal component. We start out by completely starting over with the modal because the structure of the old code was not going to work moving forward. In the new modal component, we set up 3 distinct areas where we can inject any child components we want to make the modal very customizable. To wrap up the episode, we head back into the modal CSS file and refactor it to be much more responsive and act much more like Twitter's modal when resized in the page. As always, I'm Ethan and I'm Koder, and let's hop straight into development. Here for these next few episodes, I want to do a little bit of like spring cleaning, so to speak, before I go in and start planning things. So basically, I'm just going to make some stuff up, change some things. The only thing that I really know that I need to do is fix up the modal, and then I want to do some CSS debugging. I think there's also one thing with logging in that doesn't work right now, and then we'll go back in and work on some things that I have set up. So for the time being, I'm just gonna wing it. I don't know how long these episodes are gonna be. I don't know how many episodes this is gonna be. I'm planning on just recording for like maybe an hour, 2, 3 if it gets really bad, and then kind of go from there. Let's go ahead and hop into here. So I have a small bit of a plan. I want to work not on checkbox, but I want to work on the modal. I have some refactored modal on my left side. I don't know, you guys will be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. We're going to refactor the modal, and this is going to break a lot of stuff. Then we're going to refactor that. It's just easier to go through and kind of refactor and do some of this utility and spring cleaning now rather than later. So I don't really have a plan, but hopefully we can get it to all work. So what I might go ahead and do is I might go ahead and rename this, and I'll say modal -old for the time being, and then we'll get rid of it. This is not how you'd want to do this, but it is what it is, and this is going to just break everything. That's fine, and I'm going to make a new file, and I'm going to call it modal.tsx as we did before. And I'll go ahead and import React from React. I know I could be using shortcuts and whatnot, and I'm also going to want the imports modal, I'll say /modal .css, and we'll go ahead and say export const, and then we'll say modal is equal to a react.fc. I don't know what this is going to take currently, so we're just going to leave it like this. And I messed this up. This should be modal : react.fc. And give me a moment, I'm getting a call. React.fc is equal to, I haven't done a lot of React lately, so then we'll go ahead and return, and we'll just do this. We'll throw a div in here. It's not necessary, but there we go. We have our basic div. We need to change a few things, and we'll probably need some props and stuff later. Again, if we actually open this up, it should be broken. For some reason, it's not broken, which is strange. We use modal and register modal, right? We do. Okay, apparently it's not an issue, although it shouldn't be showing any of this info. I'm very confused why this is working. I guess it is what it is. I'm gonna fix this a little bit. So our modal needs to be split up into 3 separate sections: a top, main area, and then a button area. So I'm gonna go ahead and say div class name is equal to modal, and then we're gonna have another div in here, div class name is equal to modal box. Excuse me, hiccups. This is the actual box or content, modal box. And then now we need a modal top is equal to modal -top. So this would kind of be where all of the information goes. We'll have a modal content. So div modal class name is equal to modal content. So this is where the actual content's gonna go. And then finally, we'll have a modal bottom. Div class name is equal to modal -bottom. And what I think we're going to do is we're just going to use props and stuff to pass in whatever we want in the bottom of the modal. So we'll need props again. And if I remember, I'm just gonna pull this up. I should probably close out of this. So I'm also gonna grab the assets because we'll grab it or we'll want it later. And that's something else that I want to fix up. I want to actually use this global CSS that we have. But anyway, and I'm still confused how this is still working properly. This shouldn't be working, but it is what it is, I suppose. So this should be good for now. We do want this children JSX element. And I'm thinking that instead of making this a JSX element, we make this maybe like an array of JSX elements. And then maybe we can break it apart or something. Or maybe we say top, mid, content, whatever instead. So let's go ahead and try that out. So we'll go ahead and make an interface at the top of this. And we'll call it modal props is equal to, and I did that wrong. So we'll want a top bar, I suppose, because some of the top bars are different. So let's say top content is a JSX element. Let me double check. That's what you see here. JSX dot element. And then we are going to have a content. And this will be also a JSX dot element. And then we will have a bottom or button, I guess. We'll say bottom content. And this is also a JSX element. Whoops. And sometimes this might be empty div or something like that. And I guess we can play around with it. But there's that. So now this is going to take in that modal props. Like so. And then we'll break this apart and say top content. We'll say content and we'll say bottom content. Save. By this point, it should be broken. Are you broken now? I don't know how this is not broken, if I'm going to be honest, but okay, I guess. So this is what this is looking like. Now I'm trying to figure out why in the world it's still working. Register modal takes in a modal, and then that just has some children, which shouldn't be working. Let me do a little bit of digging real quick to see why. Our modal is in the landing page. We go into landing page. We have our register modal, and then inside the register modal, oh, you know what? It's because this is still called modal. So if I say modal dash old, although it doesn't like that, call it modal old, and now it should break everything. Yeah. And now the register modal should be broken as well. Modal old. Let's change this to modal. Like so, and then that's going to break everything. And then we're also going to, I think that's the only thing we need to fix for the time being, because landing page uses register modal and then so on and so forth. So I think that should be fine for the time being. Register modal has most of the content inside of it. So with that being done, we should see just a massive mess right now. If we come in here and take a look, yeah, everything's broken. So if we just get rid of this, we should now see that there's an issue because it's missing children, or it's missing its props, I believe. So if we save and hover over, it should say, hey, type is missing the file properties, top content, content, bottom content. So we should be able to say like, okay, top content is equal to like a div. We should be able to say middle or content is equal to a div. Whoops. Let's just throw a div in here as well. And then we should be able to say bottom content is equal to a div. So obviously this is going to be breaking a lot of stuff. And then we fix this. Bottom content is equal to div. But it's okay. We're going to break a few things to fix a few things. And now, theoretically, what we should see is basically just an empty page. It's going to be pretty broken right now. Yeah, we don't really see anything because we don't really have the modal set up. It still has the register modal here and all of that good stuff. But I think we should be able to be like top and content and bottom. And we should at least be able to, whoops, we should at least be able to see some words on the screen now. We don't. Let's see, inspect. And let's go at our elements. So we have our home container, we have our modal, we have our modal box. Everything is just like 0. And this doesn't actually have anything inside of it. Let me take a look. Did I forget to put the children in there? I did. Okay, so now we'll say okay, and we'll say top content, and then we'll say content, and then we will say bottom content. Like so. Now we should be able to see some text on the page. There we go. Obviously it's not great right now. We need to fix the CSS and everything, but we're getting somewhere. So there's that. So let's go ahead and fix up the CSS in here. So I'm just gonna get rid of all this, and it's gonna break stuff even more, but it's fine. We'll fix it up. I guess it doesn't look any different anyway. So let me pull up the CSS that I originally had. We still have our dot modal. So I'm gonna grab this guy. So our dot modal is going to have a z index on it, and it's going to be 1. It's going to have a background color of RGBA, and it's going to be 0, 0, 0, and 0.5. So it's going to be black with a little bit of transparency so you can see. So we got going. We're going to have a width of 100%. Hopefully everything's set up to work, and height of 100%. Because we want this to be the full width and height of the page. So now if we take a look, you can see it's grayed out, and we can adjust how dark that is. That's fine. We are going to have a display flex on here just to make it our lives easier, because this modal gets centered. We're going to have align item center. We're going to have a justify content center, and we'll have a position absolute. Position is absolute because we want it fixed to the top left. We don't want it moving around. So top is 0 and left is 0. We probably didn't have to have this in here, but it is what it is. So now we see that the content is centered, and this takes up the entire page perfectly. So that's good. So next we need to deal with the modal box. So this is the actual pop-up itself. So I'm just going to copy paste this, and let me move this out of the way. I haven't been doing a very good job of that. So inside of the modal box, we are going to have a width of 600 pixels. This is because this is like Twitter's like default, so to speak. And the height is going to be 650 pixels. Now we are going to make this a little bit responsive, so don't worry. We're going to have a display flex. Once again, we're going to have a flex direction of column. We're going to have align content, space between. We're going to have a border radius of 20 pixels. And finally, we're going to have a background color of white. And we probably could have used Twitter's background color, or we could also probably use the global CSS. So if we come into assets, global CSS, we have a BG color. So instead of putting background white here, I'm just going to copy this BG color, and I'm going to go into modal TSX. And I'm also going to throw space and paste in that BG color. We already have the assets there, and now we don't need this color. So that'll clean that up a little bit and save. And we should theoretically see something cool. So you see it's white as we expect. We have our content, everything looks good. Now we need to deal with the top of the modal. So modal top, and copy this and paste it. The modal top is going to have a min height of 80 pixels. It's going to have a display of flex. This time we do want it in row instead of column. We're going to justify content to the start, and we are going to align items to the center. So this, you're not going to see much of difference here, but if we come in here, you can see we have some space here, and if we go into our inspect element and try to hover, it's still a little bit broken. we'll fix the sizing and everything. But you should see that our top content is about 80 pixels wide. It's a little big, we can adjust it later, but we're gonna do some queries, media queries, so that should also fix it a little bit too. That is our modal top. Now let's deal with the content. The content isn't going to be anything crazy. It's just kind of going to fill out the area. So again, our modal content is going to be height of 500 pixels. And again, don't worry, we are going to make this more dynamic. And we're going to have a display of flex. We're going to have a flex direction of column. We're going to have a justify content of center. And we're going to align item center. And then finally, we're going to have a margin auto. This might go away, just saying, just keep that in mind. We might get rid of that. So now what we're looking at is this. We have content in the middle. If I could highlight, please, that'd be cool. It won't let me just, there we go. The margin's a little bit scuffed right now, and we'll fix up all of this as well, so don't worry. But there's that. And then finally, the last thing that we really need is the modal button in the media queries. So I'll go ahead and grab modal bottom. So we have our modal split into 3 distinct sections, and we'll kind of do the CSS as we go for the other ones. So modal bottom is going to have a min height of 70 pixels. It's going to have a display flex. It's going to have a flex direction of row. It's going to have a justify center or justify content center and align item center. So we're still not going to quite see everything going on yet, but it should be fine. We might also have to put the width equals 100% on these, and that's going to be for CSS debugging in the future, but we'll see. But now we see we have a bottom, and it might be easier to do it this way, but we have our modal, we have our box, we have our top section, we have our content, and then we have our bottom section. Now the next part is going to be fixing it so that whenever we do this, it stays inside the screen at all times, and this bottom part is going to start encroaching on the content, and there's going to be a scroll bar in there because that's how Twitter does its login and sign up and stuff. So this is going to use a media query, and this one took me a while to figure out, but I'm happy with it for the most part. Let me get rid of this again. So we're going to say at media, and we're going to say only screen, and we're going to say max height is equal to 650. So once we get to 650, and the overall height of our modal box is always 650. So if we hit 650, we're going to have some special queries. So we're going to make a new modal box. So modal dash box is now going to be 100% of the view height. Excuse me, probably could have just said 100% here. If it doesn't work, I'll fix it back, right? So now if we come in here and we make this smaller, it should snap. You see, it's just following how tall we have it here. Next, what we want to do is we want to make sure our top stays and our bottom stays. We want to resize our content. So that part is the next bit. So now we're going to say dot modal dash content. And now we're going to say overflow Y is going to be auto. We're going to add a border to the bottom. So border bottom. I don't think Twitter does a border on the top. I could be wrong, but it's going to have 1 pixel solid, and it's going to be RGBA, and we're going to have 000, so black, and very, very light, 0.1. So there we go. And now if we take a look, if we start scrolling in, our, so it's probably because of the, is it because of the width or the margin? Let's do some live debugging here. On the content, let's go ahead and add a width of 100% here. I'm guessing that we don't have 100% width, if I had to guess. And let's take a look. There we go, that's better. So if we get rid of this, now we'll see, okay, we're good. And right now it's hard to see because the content's not very big, but if we have a lot of content, it'll be able to start scrolling side to up and down. And then the top is always just going to be there, and that scuffed it a little bit. So that might be something we need to look into. That's kind of the idea. Unfortunately, that's going to be it for today. If you guys enjoyed, please stick around for the next episode by hitting that subscribe button. You'll know exactly when it comes out, especially with that bell icon. If you did enjoy the content today, please sure to leave a thumbs up. If you did enjoy it, leave a thumbs down. Either way, it helps out with the algorithm all the same. And finally, if you have any suggestions or feedback for me, make sure you leave a comment down below. With that being said, I appreciate you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.